Buongiorno, welcome to today's video. Last time when we were doing Italian knitting, you saw me make Faye's head and her ponytails, the cordini. Maybe they're more pigtails if there's two of them yet. But this time we're going to be working on the next part of the pattern because Faye is a little bit more involved than her crochet counterpart. So this time we're going to start with the troncal, which I'm guessing is the torso of Faye. And I think I'm pretty strong in believing that because it's followed with the word t-shirt, which is just an English word translated in Italian, like, boop. It's like, we're not going to try to Italianicize that. We can just say t-shirt, yeah. So I got, it says, si inicia dal collo. It's the same phrase that starts with this, so it says con il colore de I Ferri 2.5 avete 9 maglia. So colore de is bianco, it's white, so I found some white that I just bought recently. Actually, I'm going to use that, which makes it the third texture difference in Faye so far. She's just going to be a lovely thing of textures. And 2.5, I mean, I don't know what size that actually is. I'm just going to the same size as before, which is a US 4. But it's very similar to what it is. So it wants me to cast on 9. We're just going to cast on 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I once knew how to count in Italian, but now I don't know if my counting in Italian is going to be me counting in Spanish instead. They are very similar in that regard, but they're not exactly the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. And once again, it has me start with a purl row. Yeah. So we just purl 1. Just making sure I know where my stitch counter is, because it's like, oh wait, I need it again. And did I actually reset it to the right rows? And like not right row. Did I actually reset it to be like wiped clean again, so that way I don't actually have any rows on it? And the answer was yes, I did. I just forgot I did it. So here we go, which means I'm safe to just go loop, click. There we go. And then now, very similar to when we were starting the neck, it wants me to increase. So basically I just do this and I increase in between the stitches until I got 2 stitches left, and then I just do the 2 stitches. Should leave us at 15. Boy, this is really starting us to be not as wide as the neck. And my foot just fell asleep. Ooh, fun. So tingly. I know it may not seem like it because you just clicked on this video, but I've actually been sitting down for quite a while. I am experiencing a hyper-focus moment at the moment. So I'm just sitting here and focusing on what I'm able to focus on. Okay. So I should have 15 on the needle now, yeah? There you go. So that's 5, 10. I have 16. Wait. I added a stitch I didn't need to add. Ba 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 ba. I hope I can catch it again. Boom boom. Boom boom. There you go. And now I really have to pay attention. Oh, that makes more sense now. It makes more sense that it would be equal like that. Yeah. Okay. I would say I got my head screwed back on, but I've never actually been without my head. Physically. Mentally, I've been without my head many a time. It's very hard to keep my head contained inside my body. But physically, my head has been attached to my neck my entire life. So, there's that. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to now actually focus as best I can. Let's see, it's 5, 10, 15. And yeah, I got 15 now. Okay. I'm going to try to focus the best I can because literally the rest is just increase, increase, then purl on the other side and just continue stockinette, which is the Maglia rosata, I'm guessing. Very similar until I have to start another color. So when I start the other color is when I'm going to jump back in. Alright, I have worked on the t-shirt part and now I've hit row 28 where it's now parte superior de collants. So this is the point of the pattern where it's going to be more like this. And this here is going to be the t-shirt, and what I'm working on here is now the bottoms. So it says continuate a lavorare. I completely butchered that. Okay, it's continuate a lavorare le 49 maglia sul ferro. So basically we're going to be working with the same amount of stitches, 49 stitches, because it had me increase, which is why we started with 9 and now we're at 49. A lot, right? And that's because Faye needs her shoulders. And now it wants me to iniziare con il colore C, con l'ensmano lavorate alternando una riga de dos sfere di colore C e una riga de dos sfere di colore B. Colore B is bianco. Colore C is grigio anthracite, which is anthracite gray. I mean, you look at Faye here. It's basically saying you're going to do 2 stripes of one color and 2 stripes of another color. But here's the thing. I don't feel like using anthracite gray. And I'm like, inside and my mind's going like, I don't want to use gray. She's a little girl. I mean, she looks sharp. I mean, I did go for the fact that for how she looks, and she is using gray, but it's like, why force a little kid to wear gray? I mean, but then I realized I'm filming a bunch of videos at once, and I am in the middle of like 20 consecutive projects done in gray. I have done 11 in gray recently. I'm contemplating another one to be done in gray. And I'm looking at about 11 more in gray. So I might be a little bit sick of gray. And I'm realizing I'm also using a different texture yarn every time I add a new color for whatever reason. So why not just make that a goal? Just every time I change color, I add a different texture. So I'm going to be using purple instead. Let's use purple. I was thinking blue, but I was like, nah, purple seems more like it. So when I add a color, no biggie. It's so simple to add another color at the end of a row when you're knitting. It's literally just add it to the end here, and then you just do the stitch, and instead of using the yarn you used before, and wow, they are different thicknesses, aren't they? And I'm going to be having to make a dress that fits her, and hope that it fits her. But I mean, they're not wildly different. It's not like I'm using something super thin. They're all like within the same 2 millimeters of thickness, I would say. Or even millimeter, honestly. Yeah, millimeter. I learned the metric system in school. I live in the United States, but they taught me the metric system. Although, unfortunately, I lived in the United States long enough that my mind defaults to the stupid American measurements in order to understand how big something actually is. But I'm not necessarily going to go into a complete tizzy if they go like, oh wow, the rest of the world uses the metric system like sensible folk. You can see it's just, I just have to make sure that the yarn doesn't get tangled. And then I do this like for every 2 rows, and it's literally like this until 43. So I'm going to come back when it's a little bit more, and I'm probably going to take a break in between then and now, because as it turns out, in non-video time, I have been knitting for at least 4 hours, so I'm ready for a break. So I'm going to go get that break. I finished that part of the torso, and it told me entriciate at the end of all that, so I assumed it actually wanted me to cast off this time. Anyway, so cute. Just like the nice like little purple stripes. I'd love it. But now it wants me to work on a different part. There's literally the what's it called? The font got bigger and bolder, which means it's a new part. And it says Brachia. So, did I pronounce that right? It's Braxia? Braxia? Yeah, Braxia. If I said like Brachia, that would be like an English pronunciation of it. And it says Faten dos. So it's making 2. So I'm assuming this is the arms, or these are the arms, because there's like, again, I don't know if I'm mixing up my Italian or Spanish, but like abrazo is like the word for hug. And like you hug with your arms. I mean, you could hug with your legs technically, but unless you're really, really close to that person, it would be rather awkward. So con il colore A I veri numero 2.5 abbiate 12 maglia. So with our lovely beige standby and the same size needles, we're going to cast on 12. And then it wants me to just do 3 rows of it, starting with a purl. So simple enough. Simple enough. There we go. It's been one of those days where I've been goofing off and making progress at the same time. It's been very strange. Go. I forgot to count. This is probably not a surprise to you at this point. 3, 6, 9. Okay. I got 3 more to add on. 2, 3. There we go. So it tells me to iniciando con un Ferri rovesco. So it wants me to start with a purl row. And did I split the yarn again? I hope I didn't. It looks like I did. Go me. How did the yarn get split? Oh, the yarn got split on the other stitch, not the stitch I was working on. And wow, okay. It all writes itself in the end. Good thing is, I think I did one of the bigger parts. So hopefully this will go faster because the row is shorter. And when it goes faster, it gives the illusion that I'm doing more than I actually am. Well, I'm still doing a lot. Gotta make sure I don't use the tail. There we go. Because we made that mistake earlier, this pattern. There you go. Alright. Oop, split the yarn again. There we go. As it gets tangled with the yarn, it will eventually end up joining with, but not yet, not yet. So with this, we will be on our third row, and then we will start doing the special thing on the fourth row. Also, I forgot to do so I'm doing it now. So for the fourth fairy, it says, Av 3 Maglia con il Medoto a tu Ferri a punto dorito, vida tecnici a dorito fino alle fine. And I have 12, but in parentheses it says 15, so I'm adding 3 stitches. And I'm just double checking. It says AVV, but earlier it told me aviate, so I'm wondering if this means cast on. This is the same thing. So let's go to the abbreviations, which I bookmarked. AVV is aviate, so it looks like I'm casting on 3 stitches at the beginning of the row before I knit anything. Ooh. As the yarn skein tries to escape, but I won't let it. No, recently at like a family meal, I thought there were like only 6 people. I thought there were supposed to be 6 people at the table, but there were only 5. And there were 5 chairs. So when there were only 5 chairs, it's like, do we have enough to sit? It's like, yeah, we do, Becky. There's only 5 of us. And it's like, oh, I guess I forgot that I was only one person. Or it's like, I don't know where the 6th person was supposed to be. But I also find myself referring to myself as we a lot of the time, which I guess if I was using they pronouns would make sense. Like we would be the plural version of me. But I have no problem saying me. But I often find myself saying we instead of I. And it's like, who's the other person in this scenario? Is there someone else living in my brain who I'm not aware of? So that is 3. And then it just wants me to knit. And then row 5 does the same thing. Okay. Cool. So I would assume at this point I'm making the hand. Part of the arm. Here you go, I got my 3 stitches added on. And now it wants me to do the same thing again, but I'm purling this time, which makes sense because that way it keeps this part. And then after that, it's just more, and then I start decreasing again. I purl 2 together with, I assume. Yeah, it's the same instructions as before, where it's like the skip pass over stitch. Yeah, that's what that's in English. It's SKPO. And then it's like do the 2 together just to get that. So, oh, this is probably like the wrist. This is probably the wrist I'm working on, and then it's going to get closer. Or this could be the top, actually. Could be the top. Because it doesn't say to bind off here. Anyway, when it gets to the color change, I'm going to turn this back on again so you can see what I've decided to do by that point. I completed it, and then I did it again, because there were 2. So it doesn't say anything about binding off, so I'm actually assuming that this is like the top of the fingers and whatnot, and then this is actually the wrist. So I'm going to switch. It says like part of it now goes Manichi, which I assume we're going to the actual sleeves. So for 13 and 14, it says, well, first it says passate al colore, which we have established is the bianco. And now it says to purl. So I'm assuming it says to purl both. So it's like, cool. I'm assuming this is to create a bit of a boundary. Like a bit of an edging to the sleeve. Like, you know, like I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt right now. Like you can actually see the end of the sleeve looks different from the actual sleeve. So I'm pretty sure they're trying to go for the same effect for Faye with minimal effort. Here we go. Just making sure this doesn't... I should probably tie these 2 together while I'm thinking about it, so that way they don't come loose. And I can always untie it later when I'm weaving it in, provided I don't make the knot too tight. Thinking ahead. $13, and then now we purl. For row 14. So what I've been working in so far for Faye has all been in stockinette. This is the first instance of the garter stitch. The garter stitch is an old friend. I like the garter stitch. And then from 15 to 47, I literally just do straight stockinette. And then from 47 to 55, there's decreasing, which I'm sure is how they create the shoulder. So if I continue to purl here for this row, I'm just going to purl this row so that way you can see the effect that's going on. Although you can probably already see it, but my fingers are in the way because that's where I'm holding the work. There you go. So if you look at it here, so you got a nice little border to be the edge of the sleeve. So that way, when I work on stockinette for the rest of this, it will like stand out and like give a little bit of dimension to the doll. I'll be back. The arms are done. And it looks like I actually started with the fingers. And then the thumbs are right here, and then, which makes sense, just go from one end to the other. But now that I got them both done, we have the gambe e stivaletti, which I'm guessing are the feet and the legs. I mean, that would follow if you make the arms to then follow with the legs. So it says fatten dos. No, not fatten. It's fatene. Fatene. Italian pronounces everything, unlike English. Then it says iniziando dalla suola dello stivaletto con il colore F I Ferri 2.5 abitini 12. So still the straight needles somehow, but colore F is nero, which is black. So as I'm looking at the instructions, it's all very similar to what I already have done, which is like increase, 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 but it increases very, very quickly. It goes like from 12 to 17 to 25 to 33. Those are some huge leaps. And it's basically just continual increases until row 10, where I add color C, which the book says is gray, but which I've been using purple. And then I continue that, and then I think it's not going to end up doing anything weird until the very, very end. So I'm going to just start with casting on the stitches and just increasing, and I'll show you how it goes. I have made progress on what is turning out to be the foot. And I'm guessing I'm going to be sewing it like so. But I did have to take a row out and redo it because my mind just went on autopilot. And it turns out the fancy little border I had to put on the hand right here, the wrist, also went on the bottom of the foot. And it was hard to figure it out because it was black yarn. And there's a reason why they recommend like a lighter color yarn when you learn how to knit, because it's very difficult to see stitches in darker yarn, particularly when the yarn is black. And so I could barely tell from the pictures that it also had this border. It's like I just barely got it from this picture. The rest of the, because of a slight light reflection, like casting off of some light there, that made the stitches visible. In other parts of this book, like even here where it's supposed to be the close-up of the foot, it's invisible. And if my eyes had been in any worse condition than they are now, which, I mean, I'm not exactly 20/20 vision, but I only need them for far away, so theoretically my close-up eyesight is good. It's like other people might have missed that. Yeah. But what I do find hilarious is I got distracted because as I was knitting, I was listening to an Elabat video. And what's kind of hilarious is in the Elabat video, she was talking about getting distracted watching another YouTuber's video. It was like, wow, what a coincidence. But The one thing I do have to say is that the purple and black combination, very sharp. Like, oh my gosh, it looks so sharp. But now, I'm on row 20. And this is the big one. I currently have 35 stitches on the needle. And at the end of this one, they want me to have 16. And all the stitches that go away are in the middle. Now, this is where my past experience is the only reason I am able to do this. Because I have another book by this author. Is this book up here, actually? Or did I not bring it upstairs yet? I don't think I brought it back upstairs yet. But I have a book by the same author in a different language because somehow that was not something I realized till after I bought the book. And she likes doing feet in this way. So often what I've done in the past is I've gotten the needles set up and then I've done like the 3-stitch cast off, but that's not how she does it. She actually just casts all the stitches off in the middle and you sew it up afterwards, and it looks like that's what I'm going to have to do this time because it wants me to decrease as I'm binding off somehow. So that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to show you guys. So I cast off 8. Oh, I don't cast off yet, but I knit 8. There we go. And now it wants me to knit 7, then do the decrease. But it says like chiudete queste 17 maglia central a mano che lavorate. Like, okay. So now that, oh, I only have 7 so far. Now I have the 8. I'm usually 1 off when I count. There we go. So now it's 1. But at this point I can kind of just ignore it because I can tell from the pattern of the stitches the decreases happen at the same spot. I don't know if you can see it here. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah, you see how there's like a line sticking out? That's a decrease. So I kind of don't really have to count this part. I just got to work to the decrease and then I'm where I need to be. I like that for me. And then this is where we have our skip pass over one. Yeah. So I skip and I pass it over and then I bind it off anyway. So. And then now I actually got to pay a little bit more attention because I've lost that. But I got a stitch marker around here, yeah? I should. Aha. See. So I just count out 8, 3, 6, 8. And then I don't have to count. Working smarter. Although it does make it kind of awkward to knit because now I've got bit of a gap. But it's how you get the foot shape. So now I can take that off. And that is our special event. So now, it's going to want me to decrease to 15 stitches. So as I turn around, how are we going to compensate for the gap? See, we squeeze it together. And then when I get to the middle 2 stitches, I just knit them together. And that will hold it together until I can get a sewing needle in there and sew it. But like I often do, am putting off all sewing until I absolutely have to. Because that is not the most fun part of the project for me. I love to knit. I love to crochet. I tolerate sewing. It's a necessary evil, but even though I've done it longer than knitting or crocheting, I don't remember learning how to sew. I remember learning how to needlepoint. That's different. But I'm pretty sure my mom taught me to sew when I was much younger, because I can't remember a time I wasn't using a needle. Or actually I can, because I do have a memory of when I was 3 years old, and I certainly wasn't holding a needle then. But it was probably it was definitely before the age of 8. Definitely before the age of 8. Which is over 20 years ago. Woo! Alright. So now we've hit another part in the pattern. It's the parte inferiore dei collants. Remember the collants? We worked on the superiore part up there. So this is when I work on the leg. It says continuate a lavare le 15 maglia su ferro insienado con il colore de, that's our bianco here. Collants vanno lavorate alternando una riga de dos ferri de colore de y una riga de dos ferri de colore se. So basically, do the stripes with the purple and the white again until row 77. And I just finished row 21. So I'm not going to subject you to having you watch me just do a striped triangle. So I'm going to come back when I hit whatever risvolti degli stivaletti is. The leg has now been activated, and I finished on 77, but the cast off ended up being row 78, and it ended on the one on the color it told me to end. So at some point I'll have to sew this together, and I'll have to make another leg at some point. Now it's the risvolti degli stivaletti, which I also have to make 2 of. And, as I'm looking at the instructions, get to do something new. So I've already took the liberty of casting on 31 stitches, and I did the easy cast on this time, because my favorite way of casting on, the cable cast on, usually when I cast on like that, it gives me a straight edge, but unfortunately it's not a very elastic cast on, which means when it comes to knitting a fabric that's meant to be a little bit more elastic, it doesn't have much give. And usually when the pattern's written in rib, like I can see, it's written here. It wants give. So here, I got my 31 stitches on the needle. It wants me to start with a purl edge. It's 1 rove 2 der. Fino all'ultima 1 rove. I'm assuming rove is the abbreviation for rovescio, which is the word they've been using for purl all this time. So basically 1 purl 2 knit. I can do that. Ooh, well, I gotta remind myself. Tension is different with this baby now that I did the easy cast on. I gotta be careful. It's going to be kind of loose. So just 1 purl. Don't pull too tight. 2 knit. At some point I'm going to have to reteach myself the long tail cast on. I taught myself the long tail cast on at one point, and then I didn't use it for anything, and then I promptly forgot it. But I remember like reading knitting instructions and going like the long tail cast on, which everyone knows, and it's like literally no one has ever taught me that. Like, or like not just no one has ever taught me that, but also like it has literally never come up. Why are you saying everyone knows this? Like, I was knitting for decades before it came up. Theoretically, anything that I learned today is something that I have been knitting for decades before it came up. Although most of the things I learn nowadays aren't exactly knitting related. Wait. Ah! I distracted myself. I was about to do 2 purl. That would have been bad. Would have been bad. Oh good, I thought I'd forgotten to redo the row counter, but I didn't. It's all good. I repeat, it's all good. Also, you can probably tell it's significantly later in the day. I had some very weird dreams last night. I was chasing frogs. I love frogs, but for some reason they were in what used to be my sister's bedroom, and we had to chase them, and we were collecting them into like a tank, and like she had to tell me like I had to tell her like, hey, maybe don't put too much water in the tank. I mean, they might drown. They're not water frogs. It was a very weird dream. Oh my gosh, I love frogs. There you go. And then I somehow end the row with a purl stitch. Also, why am I sitting like this? This is like a very weird situation to be sitting in. Okay, that's better. It's like I didn't need to be that tight and tense. There you go. So the problem with the easy cast on is it's not as neat, but I mean, it's going to rib itself, so you know, that sounds like it should be dirty, but it's not. At least not in that context. As my mind just goes searching for innuendos, and I think I found one, but I'm just gonna let it go. Okay, so now I do the reverse. And I basically like, and I understand why I do the reverse. It's to keep the same pattern for the knit end. pearl. Also, I got myself in a situation today where I literally cannot go to bed until I fold my laundry, which is usually my main motivation to actually fold the laundry instead of just having it sit in the laundry hamper for several days. But it does get annoying when you're starting to feel a bit tired and it's like, oh man, I gotta do that now. It's not like I have to go to bed for any reason. I don't really have to get up for anything tomorrow. I'm kind of losing track of the days because I dumped my schedule recently. But I did accomplish a fair amount today. I watched a lot of TV. I was not intending to watch so far today, but I accomplished a lot today. I found Mary Poppins on Spotify. It was interesting to hear it on Spotify because, like, the Mary Poppins on Spotify, like, I've watched the Mary Poppins movies for, like, forever. At least as long as my life expectancy is concerned. And there are, like, certain parts that, like, I hear the part of the song and it's like, oh yeah, this noise comes at this time. But when it's a soundtrack, they delete the noise. And it's like, where's the noise? Like in the Lady Suffragette song, there's one point where, like, Winifred Banks is lifting up her skirt and then it shows her bloomers and you hear Katie and Anna go, ah! And it's just like a part of the song, but because Candace, she's showing her underwear. But on the soundtrack, they eliminate Katie and Anna's scream, and it's like, wait, what? It's the same lady who plays Mrs. Banks, singing a song. So, did they just record the soundtrack in a different room and they deleted some of the movie stuff? Is that what happened? Like, also 7 minutes of Step in Time. And there were, like, more verses to Step in Time than what they actually played in the soundtrack. It's like, there are words here that should be playing along to the music. Anyway, I've got 2 rows, so you can kind of see it's starting to form its pretty self there. Yeah. So I think when I finish this, we'll finish the second part of the video. Well, no, this is not the second part. This is part number 3. That's right. Yeah, this will be when I complete the 3rd part of Italian knitting, and whatever the abito is, we'll start part number 4. So when I come back, I'll have more of this done. Or at least the ribbing part done. Here I have the part of the stiglavati. I hope I'm remembering that correctly because I didn't look at it. But it turned out pretty nice. And then it was so nice that I made it twice. Actually, I needed to make it twice because, like, Faye was going to have 2 legs. Yeah. So I think that's where we're going to leave off this video, which, I mean, we've made this part of the legs, as well as the actual legs, and then we made the arms and the body, so that's a lot for one video. And next time, I believe we're going to start the dress, so that's going to be exciting. Anyway, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day. Ciao.